So I'm here with Victoria Johnson, and I've been following her work for so long. She does stunning work in a lot of different mediums, but today we're going to talk about collage. So Vicki, when I think of your work, you do watercolor as I do, we do gouache, sometimes we throw in some ink, but collage kind of feels like it stands alone as a little bit of a different process. How did you start working, incorporating collage into your work?
When I was about 18 and I first started my first art degree, we did a lot of experiment, the first year of a degree and also foundation even before that. It's all about experimenting and trying as many different things as possible. And I've carried that forward. And especially because I dropped out of my first degree and then I continued it 5 years later. And at that point, I was using collage a lot for textile designs because the degree was in furnishing textile designs. I was focused on that specifically. And again, there was a lot of experimentation. We were encouraged to take a fine art approach to design. And then later, when I became I worked in a studio designing fashion textiles in New York, and we were required to be, a jack of all trades because you had to constantly be innovating and competing and trying to come up with something new. And the whole point was to be as imaginative and creative as possible. And we were mainly doing florals. So in order to reinvent the wheel over and over again, the best option was to fall back on techniques, trying new techniques, because, there are limitless styles of florals, but if you combine the limitless styles with limitless techniques, you've got a never-ending recipe for original art. So that's my history that led me to this. So I've basically, right from day one, I've been doing mixed media and trying new things and experimenting. I mean, that's like a really a central part of everything I'm doing artistically is just wonder how something works and have a go. And I always call it low stakes art because if you approach it without the need to create a masterpiece, and you create it as a low stakes endeavor where it's okay if it fails, you're more likely to take a risk, and that means that you're more likely to be more experimental. So that's how I approach it, and that's why I'm pretty adventurous, probably not too worried about the outcome.
I like that way that you said it. It's a low stakes art approach. So how do you typically use collage or incorporate collage in your work?
So I've got a drawer full of tissue papers, all different colors. I've got, over the years, I've collected all sorts of random scraps. I've got these origami papers in all different colors. I don't like to be too precious about things because if I start to get preciously organized, then I start to get too controlling and too tight when I'm actually producing the artwork as well. So it's fairly tidy. Look, it's not appallingly messy, but it's not like I haven't got really tight reins over everything. I'll look at a reference when I'm doing florals, usually and again, it's that spontaneous thing. I've got a policy of, if I'm looking for reference on Pinterest, for example, I won't allow myself to spend more than a couple of seconds looking. I've got to pick something quick and not waste time, grab something, because what I'm going to paint isn't really going to look like what I'm looking at anyway. It's a starting point. It's sort of a launch pad. So I'll pick something quickly, and then I'll look at it mainly in terms of texture, color, light, and shade. And I'm not really even considering what the subject matter is. I'm really just looking at texture, color, light, and shade, and the relationship of those things. I'll look at a reference when I'm doing florals, usually just, and again, it's that spontaneous thing. I've got a policy of, if I'm looking for reference on Pinterest, for example, I won't allow myself to spend more than a couple of seconds looking. I've got to pick something quick and not waste time, grab something, because what I'm going to paint isn't really going to look like what I'm looking at anyway. It's a starting point. And again, this is testimony to my approach. That's my paint pad. It's just a question of grabbing stuff, grabbing color as I want it.
Vicky, I suspect you don't know how inspiring and how delicious it's been to look at your materials and hear you just talk through your process.
Oh, okay.
I don't think you realize how fun that is. So thank you. Thank you for doing this. And where can people find you?
So I teach courses, primarily I've been teaching courses up till now about how to approach design, almost like coaching people how to approach commercial design. But what I want to switch to now, and where I'm heading this year specifically, is I want to talk a lot more about these techniques and the actual my personal creative approach. And so I'm going to do, this year I'm going to produce and launch a portrait painting course. So it's going to be a lot more focused on my personal approach to things and teaching artistic skills, techniques, etc.
Keep exploring style from A to Z as we continue with these short videos, meeting lots of artists, talking about their unique styles and all its different forms. Ready to explore style in your sketchbook? Check out Watercolor Bold, try out your first week free, and tell me if you love it. See the links below.